You are listening to the On Purpose Podcast. Welcome, everybody, to the On Purpose Podcast, episode 175. We're excited to have you here and excited to share some thoughts with you. This week's episode, I hope you listened to last week's with Kate Kimball. It was super awesome. We discussed the meaning of fallow and how that applies to your life, as well as a strategy she's using that I've heard before that I put some thought into is what this week's episode's titled, Your Future Self, and bouncing ideas and thoughts and tendencies off of what would the impact be to your future self before you commit. But before we jump into that and get started, I want to tell you that I'm still shocked when people I've known for a long time or friends of mine are surprised to find out I have a podcast, right? And then they're really blown away when they realize it's 3 years old and over 175 episodes. I don't know how we're friends and they don't know it, but somehow they don't know it. So somehow it's getting missed in the world of technology and cyberspace and algorithms, but that's okay because then they usually want to know, how can I help? And I share with them that there's no cost other than if you want to help, you can listen, like, subscribe, share, and help us grow the podcast. And if you're really, really driven by it, you can join us on Patreon, commit financially to really helping us make the On Purpose podcast all that it can be. So with that, I want to thank those of you that are already our Patreon members, and you get your early releases and get to jump in early with us, as well as some other perks that reside over there. So if that's an interest to you, please go over to patreon.com/the On Purpose Podcast to find out more and to help us become the biggest podcast in the world. I think that's a pretty cool goal. All right, let's get back to this. So your future self is this week's episode. And what I like to think about it is stopping and just asking, is what I'm about to do or what I'm about to say, what I'm about to not do, going to negatively or positively impact my future self, right? So many of us spend so much time with past self, the mistakes, the errors, the shortcomings, our failures. We live in the past, we allow that to weigh us down, but we don't think about our future selves enough, right? Like self-talk. What is the words I'm saying to myself mentally? When I look in the mirror, when I wake up in the morning, what am I telling myself? And how is that going to impact my future me? Am I talking to myself in a way that's going to create space for growth and abundance? Or does my self-talk rely on fear and scarcity for my future self? What about learning? Am I doing things today, like reading, writing, having real, meaningful conversations with others that will allow me to learn more so that my future self is more educated, more worldly, more global in perspective? Or do I spend time watching reruns on Netflix and binging movies that actually make me feel worse about myself? What are my daily habits doing for my future me? Do I get up in the morning and have my gratitude journaling and my thankfulness? Am I moving my body? Am I moving my body today so that future me can still move their bodies? Right? Or do I hit that snooze button? Sleep in, skip all the promises I made to myself. But what's the impact if I do that today? What's the impact on future Jerrod for that? One that I really like to think about is relationships. Right? When we think about our relationships, it's easy in the day-to-day routine, the monotony of life, the just grind that we get in sometimes to take for granted our relationships, to not give them the attention we really want or that they deserve. But if you stopped before you said that mean thing, before you ignored, before you got on your phone when your loved one's there trying to talk to you, or your kids are trying to share something with you, or you're meeting a stranger and they're sharing their life story with you, would you be more present if you knew that your future self was watching? Would you be so staunch in your opinions and your politics and all the other things that seem to separate us in life if your future self was looking back at you, shaking their head, wondering why? Why families are divided, why you can't be around somebody because they didn't vote for the same politician you voted for. If you put yourself in future perspective, a lot of times the things that are so big to us right now, that are so important to us right now, won't be that important to our future selves. But a lot of the decisions, the actions, the inactions we take today drastically impact our future selves. One that always gets me thinking too is when I see, really well-rounded, educated, thought-out people that I respect completely biased and one-sided in their social media. And I always wonder, what are your kids and what is your future self going to say when they look back at your social media post? Would the future self be happy, thriving, and loving your positions on all these things? Those type of comments that say, if you disagree with me, unfriend me right now type rants. Would your future self be proud of that? Now, I'm not saying everything you should do is for your future self, but I ask you this. If your purpose isn't making your future self better, what is the purpose of that decision? Isn't every decision we actually make about a new relationship, to take that promotion, to move to a new house or a new city? Isn't that always about making our future self better than our current situation? And if so, why don't we stop for a minute, give pause, and reflect on our future self and our future self perspective? For me, recently, I had a great example of this when we're doing our summer gig out here in Hill City, South Dakota, working at a brewery and winery and doing stuff I've never done before. And it's fun. It's learning new things, but it's not coaching. It's not podcasting. It's not a lot of the stuff I've done in my life in the past. It was all people related, right? But a couple guys at the brewery were needing help with some accountability coaching and some mentorship and some guidance. And one of the owners had come to me and approached me about it and asked if I could talk to the guys. And while it's certainly not part of my job there for the summer, and quite honestly, I'm working for well below what I've made in other times in my life, but it's a trade-off for a certain, quality of life and ability to travel. I feel like I could have easily ignored the request and the behaviors I saw in these young men. Right? Because no, I'm not getting paid to do that. That's not what I'm there for. And when I think about that, I go, what would future Jerrod say if he knew you could have impacted those young men's lives with a few minutes of your time, but you chose not to? What would future Jerrod think if he knew that I saw them struggling? That I heard other people making fun of them for their struggles. That I could see their erratic behavior and knew there was more going on than what others knew. But I chose to not do it because of money. What would that future Jerrod think? What would he say to me if he knew that at this time in my life, with the experience I've had and the communities we've built and all the stuff that I've been known to do and that I love doing, which is helping making other people better, that I chose not to? what would my future self think? And I think like that, I'm like, oh, they'd be very disappointed in me. Right? My life's never been about money, but for some reason this day, to not help somebody because of money, that's not me. Sometimes I'm accused of helping people too much, of invested too much time. But for this day, I chose not to do anything. My future self would have been very let down. They'd have been very disappointed in me. And when you take that perspective, you're like, okay, so what can I do to make my future self proud, to make my future self better? Well, it's easy. I'm going to give these guys some time. I'm going to be honest with them and truthful with them and listen to them and share with them. Because that's what my future self would expect. So the next time you're faced with a big decision, temptation, a possibility, stop and ask yourself, what is the benefit and the impact on my future self with this decision, whether I make it or I don't make it? And balance out how much time we spend looking in our rear view mirror at our past and how much weight we carry from our past with looking to our future and what is our obligation to put ourselves in our best possible situations in the future by our very actions today. Appreciate y'all being here with me today. I love to get some feedback with you or from you. And I would love to hear what conversations you're having with your future self. Take care this week. We'll see everybody again next week.
And remember, team, life is far too short to live any other way than on purpose. We will see you all again next week.